Brazil is our source of inspiration. We believe in transforming histories told all over the country. We are curious. We are going deeper in our themes. And the consistency along decades gave us the recognized authority by the audience, helping to make the right questions with intelligence and high-level content. We are going beyond news to get to go deep in each story and helping on the decision-making, help of the kids and the future of the planet, the small purchases, the big acquisitions, agribusinesses, and food business. Fashion trends to the classic of decoration. From the daily routine technologies to big innovations. From the choice of your candidate for the next election, where to invest, to how to be an entrepreneur. We translate the complexity of a changing world. Our purpose is connecting people and stories, informing, educating, entertaining, debating. Listening and transforming ourselves with our audience. We acknowledge talents and celebrate their winning. We create unique experiences. We anticipate trends and we reflect the cultural diversity of our country, our passion by communication, the creativeness, the pioneerism, the commitment of the journalism with the strengthening of democracy and the search by quality take us to the leadership. We believe in the interdependency of society and institutions, and inspired and well-informed citizens have power to build a better country. We work with enthusiasm and discipline, and we constantly change to be loyal to our essence and to the creating spirit of our founders. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's a huge pleasure to be here with you today in this event from three companies that I admire a lot: Bracell, Editora Globo, and Valor Econômico. An event presented by Valor Econômico with a realization of Editora Globo. I'm Cris Pelagio. I'm a journalist, a speaker, communicator, and I'll be here the entire morning with you all, bringing a lot of insights, a lot of information in an event that will touch urgent matters, vital matters to our future. At the end of the day, we need to talk about it. We need to act right now to be able to, in fact, to build a sustainable legacy, generating positive impact and also the creation of value for climate, nature, and people, everybody, to the community and businesses. It's a huge pleasure, an honor to be here with you all in this exchange. And I really believe that will bring a lot of good things for us. Today, Bracell is giving an important step in this sense, presenting Bracell 2030. Its long-term strategy for sustainability, compounded by goals and commitments, which are really ambitious ones, and along with the sustainable development goals from United Nations. I'm thinking about a global agenda that depends on the joining of efforts from all of us here. We would like to talk about the role of companies, because a recent study from BDO Consultancy brought some numbers which are really important to highlight here. 61% of the companies in Brazil see ESG themes as strategical Oh, thank you. As a strategical for businesses, but only 39% of them has a specific area of sustainability and team, a staff, a dedicated staff at home. It means it's necessary that each time more the companies understand their role in this journey and act with a sense of urgency and priority. Soon, we'll follow here a very rich debate that will approach how paper and cellulose companies can advance in the sustainability agenda and generating a positive impact. You can you can and should participate on the discussion, sending your questions through the QR code that's being shown right now on the screen. You just point your cell phone and please send your questions. It's really important for you to participate in this panel, to be in this discussion that is hugely important, a discussion that is vital to Bracell and the entire society. To start our event, I have the pleasure to invite to the stage the Bracell's president, Praveen Singhavi, that will tell us a little bit about the path the company has been through. Welcome, Praveen.
And those who are following the event on our digital platform. Today, we are going to share a great news. I also want to humbly greet and welcome our government representatives, our customers, our suppliers, our banking partners, members of the civil society, our colleagues and employees, members of the press, and everyone who is joining us today for this event. And special thank you to Natalia Hezende. She's present here with us, Secretary of Environment, Infrastructure, Logistics of the State of São Paulo. And also, thank you to the panelists who have kindly accepted our invitation to be part of the panel discussion later on. And I'm sure there'll be a good discussion. So thank you, Liv Costa, Paulo Hartung, Mauricio Voivodic. Where is... Okay, thank you. Thank you to be here, and I'm sure you'll bring a good insight, valuable insight, and ideas during the panel discussion later on. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you, Editora Globo and Valor Econômico for this partnership. As you know, we are going to launch today Bracell 2030. It is our long-term strategy to build a legacy for a more sustainable future by delivering a positive impact to the climate, nature, and people. We believe that there is no better time than to present this contribution to sustainable development than today, because we are only 1 month away from COP28, which will be held at Dubai. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion about how the world can advance on climate agenda. But before we begin, I would like to briefly introduce about Bracell and the group which it belongs to. So I would say Bracell is a Brazilian company which is a part of an international group, RGE, Royal Golden Eagle, and which is headquartered at Singapore. RGE manages companies with global manufacturing operations based on natural resources and specializing in manufacturing of renewable products. Our purpose is improving lives by developing resources sustainably, a very big purpose. RGE has been in operation for past 55 years. It has approximately 60,000 employees worldwide, and we have more than $30 billion of assets. Our operations are in Indonesia, that's where we started our business, in China, in Europe, in Canada, and here in Brazil. Let's talk about Bracell now, because we talk about RGE. Bracell is present in Brazil since 2003. Actually, in September last month, we have celebrated our 20 years of anniversary in Brazil. So it is not that we came up, we are here for a long, long time. We understand Brazil. We have industrial units in Bahia and São Paulo. Our plantation operations are in Bahia, state of São Paulo, and Mato Grosso do Sul. We plant every year 150 million trees, approximately 500,000 trees every day we plant. We are one of the global leaders in production of dissolving pulp, specialty pulp, and kraft pulp. And these are renewable raw materials which are further processed and converted into biodegradable products which we use in our everyday life. For example, tissue paper, printing writing paper, textile products. Some of the products were in display outside as well. I don't know how many of you have seen those. And our pulp mill in Bahia is the only mill which is capable of producing specialty pulp in Latin America, which is used in pharmaceutical, food products, filters, tire cord, and printing inks. Very, very specialized pulp. In 2021, we started the greenest and largest pulp mill in the world at Lençóis Paulista in the state of São Paulo. Its construction process and the state-of-the-art technology is so impressive that there is a discovery documentary which will be premiering in next month and which will also be available on the streaming platform later on. I invite you all to watch this documentary, learn more about Bracell and its commitment to sustainable production, and to pick your curiosity, let's watch a teaser of this documentary. Can we have the video, please?
O Brasil já é o segundo maior produtor de celulose do mundo e está prestes a ter a sua primeira mega fábrica. 1.654.000 metros quadrados.
A gente está colocando à prova tudo que foi feito durante esses 2 anos.
Cara, eu não tô enxergando nada.
Segura aí, segura.
30.000 profissionais.
O torrão dela precisa estar bem consistente, que tá muito bom, viu?
2 anos de trabalho.
Foi difícil de dormir essa noite, nunca pensei nada desse tamanho.
E bilhões de reais investidos.
O clima tá tenso. Se a caldeira parar, para a fábrica inteira.
Um desafio da engenharia que vai criar um dos maiores complexos de produção de celulose do planeta. Desafios da Engenharia, a fábrica do futuro. Estreia quinta, 23 de novembro, no Discovery. E assista também no Discovery Plus.
As you can see that we have invested a big amount of money and huge investment in Brazil, and we continue to invest in Brazil. We continue to grow in Brazil. And this year, in that sequence, in this year, we began construction of a most modern tissue mill in Brazil. This new mill is also located at Lençóis Paulista, next to our pulp mill, and we'll produce tissue products for export as well as domestic market. The mill will start up in Q2 of 2024. And I'm also happy to announce that the entire roof of the tissue mill will be covered with solar panel. That will generate electricity, and that will be about 20% of our tissue mill's energy requirement. And this, my team tells me that this is the largest rooftop solar panel installation in Brazil or in Latin America. It's going to generate about 9 megawatt of electricity per hour, 9 megawatts, a huge electricity generations. With our large investment in Brazil, we play our role to be an industry that employs thousands of people, generate income and new business opportunity in this country. In line with our strategy to grow our downstream business, this year we have acquired a tissue operations in Bahia, which is the second largest tissue manufacturing operations in the northeast of Brazil. So I must say that Bracell trusts Brazil, and that's why our plan is to continue to grow our business responsibly and sustainably. Once again, I say that Bracell is a Brazilian company with a long-term commitment to Brazil. And I also have a pretty much long-term commitment to Brazil. My personal story is I used to be in Brazil 17 years back, and it's such a coincidence that I'm back in Brazil after 17 years to lead this fantastic operations of Bracell. And let's talk about sustainability, where the event is. So when it comes to sustainability, our belief is very simple. Sustainability and business operations are two sides of the same coin. You cannot disintegrate sustainability. You cannot distinguish between two aspects. And our philosophy is very simple and clear that when we start the business, the business has to be sustainable first and then business start. We cannot run a business, you start the project and think sustainability later. It has to go hand in hand. So for our industry, forest, water, soil, and climate are closely linked to our business. Hence, we put our people and communities at the center of everything we do so that we can play our role in moving towards a more inclusive and sustainable world. This year, we brought together the entire company to renew our sustainability strategy and set our priorities for the coming years. The result of the process is Bracell 2030. This is our roadmap for sustainability. It has ambitious targets and commitments aligned with United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, or UN SDGs. We have addressed our Bracell 2030 ambitions on multiple fronts. When it comes to climate, our goal is to reduce our carbon footprint significantly. To achieve that, we are transforming every aspect of our business, from building fossil fuel-free mill operations to electrification of our trucks. There's one electric truck outside. You can see that. This is one what we are implementing in our operations, and investing in solar energy. Our eucalyptus plantation, we are focusing on improving our productivity. So with these plantation, together with our native forest area, which we conserve, are absorbing around 5 million tons of carbon dioxide every year. So this powerful combination of reducing carbon emissions and increasing removal of carbon from our plantations will lead to a more climate positive operations for Bracell. Protecting natural forests and biodiversity are also one of the top priority for Bracell. We have a unique one-to-one commitment. It means for every 1 hectare of eucalyptus forest or eucalyptus plantation, Bracell is committed to conserve 1 hectare of native vegetation forest. And we are working in partnership with the state government where we have our operations, and we are already helping on the conservation of more than 100,000 hectares of public conservation units, and we plan to double it in the coming years. We continue to invest in the state-of-the-art technologies to promote better operational efficiency for our operations. And some of the benefits and targets are lower water consumption, higher percentage of chemical recovery in our operations, and lower generation of industrial waste. And to build a more inclusive world, we develop our people and surrounding communities with us through our Bracell social program. It is a private social investment program to carry out projects that contributes to development of local communities. Bracell social program is mainly focusing on 3 aspects: basic education, income generation for the communities, with a special focus on women, youth, and traditional community, and third is enhancing local culture. Over the past 3 years, more than 340,000 people have directly or indirectly benefited by our programs and projects under Bracell Social. So I would say that Bracell is striving to build a better future for the pulp and paper industry in Brazil through concrete actions which are completely aligned with our founders' 5C business philosophy. That is, good business is all about what is good for the community, good for the country, good for the climate, good for the customer, then only it will be good for the company. Through Bracell 2030, which we are launching today, we are positioning Bracell as a leading voice in the sustainability in our industry. We live in a very competitive scenario in which we understand that sustainability is given, and it is very much intrinsic to our industry or our sector. That is why, for Bracell, sustainability is an integral part of our business strategy and objective. And it is driven from top, and it is embraced by the entire organization over here. And that Bracell 2030 is a proof point where we have collectively come up with these sustainability commitments and goals. And with our entrepreneurial vision of development, there is a genuine way to show value creation in the entire value chain. And we focus a lot on execution discipline and each stage of the process. And that makes Bracell different. And I would like to share with you all our new brand positioning that reflects these our ethos. Can you have the video, please?
Pensar grande, considerar o todo, ter a perspectiva geral, entender a distância, impactar em escala, evoluir exige esse olhar. Mas ser a mudança que se sustenta ao longo do tempo vai além. É analisar cada aspecto, cuidar de perto, observar diferentes ângulos, adaptar-se sempre, buscar o novo a todo momento. Se você acredita que fazer a diferença é fazer diferente, a Bracell é como você. Na forma como cuidamos das florestas de eucalipto, conduzimos nossos processos de última geração, impulsionamos nossas pessoas e as comunidades, nos responsabilizamos pelo meio ambiente e contribuímos para o desenvolvimento do país. Bracell, fazer a diferença em cada detalhe.
And I would like to invite now Natalia to take the stage to say some few words. And Natalia, you can speak in Portuguese. Feel free. Thank you very much and enjoy the event. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. As people allowed me to speak in Portuguese, I'm going to say thank you very much. First of all, so I would like to thank the invitation. It's an honor to be here today with such a qualified audience and companies that are actually investing and fostering initiatives that the state of São Paulo has also put a lot of effort on to improve either the environment or sustainability as a whole. Sustainability in terms of public policies, in every public policy that we prepare and carry out. So I want to thank you, Praveen, the president of Bracell, Damasio, the vice president of sustainability at Bracell, Manuel, the director of institutional affairs. And I would like to thank our entire team on behalf of Lívia and Rodrigo. And it's a great pleasure to be here and talk about a theme that is so close to our heart in the Department of the Environment, Infrastructure, and Logistics. As first mentioned by our presenter, each department needs to have sustainability as a focus. And we see that in our secretariat as well. So we have a nucleus that is actually focused on sustainability. And why is that? Why do we do that? Because for each public policy that we carry out, we need to study what we're going to do in practical terms with initiatives and measures so that we can actually see the environment and present it, bring it forth in those initiatives. So within this nucleus that we developed, we prepared a task force for the environment. And when we talk about resilience and climate change, it's not possible for us to look at the short term. We need to think about the short, the medium, and the long term to think up to 2050. And what do we need to do in pillars such as soil usage, companies, residues, waste, energy, transportation, and green finances in a cross-sectional way. So in each one of those pillars, we prepared actions, sub-actions, and implementation plans, either in terms of changes, resilience, or adaptation. Now, when we think about the environment itself, we're very happy to say that in the International Day of the Environment in the June, we launch a program that is very much in line with what was said today. So we have this challenge of recovering, preserving the environment. So in our plan, we established a target of 37,000 hectares to recover this area by 2026. So if we look at the average over the last few years, I would say it's very ambitious and bold. And obviously, we want to overcome it. So when we talk about Kosuji, that was here in the last week and the week before that, of joining, doing that jointly to plant 100,000 new trees and preserve hectares in those 7 states, focusing on the Amazon native vegetation. We're actually talking about fostering initiatives that I'm gonna meet those targets and goals, and we'll actually put together the private audience and the public audience, because we can only move forward with those challenges if we walk hand in hand with one another. So when we look at Bracell and the partnership that we have through the Forest Foundation as a company, by the way, we're talking about recovery, we're talking about fire protection, about educational initiatives and raising awareness about that, also about research and technology. So all of that has to do with sustainability and preservation and protecting the environment. So what we want to do, and on behalf of the state of São Paulo, we want companies to be a part of that, to help us recover that, and to do something very important, which is to achieve circular economy. So why do we have to separate development for sustainability? That is not necessary. Things can walk hand in hand. Bracell has proven that it's possible. So we want to foster that, to have more companies paying attention to basic sanitation, water resources, energy, logistics, so as to have this union of efforts, whether within our environmental plan or in Integra Tietê, a project to integrate the Tietê River in its entire reach. So what we have to do in terms of sanitation, in terms of water resources, we know that this is important for São Paulo. So we're lacking water here more than people are lacking in the Northeast region. So we have 1/10 of what we needed. So we need to improve our sanitation. We need to invest more in that area. Obviously, this is going to produce more jobs and profit, and that is fostering sustainability. And we also see the same thing in regards to energy. So we're preparing our state energy plan, focusing on 2050 with long-term, short-term, and medium-term initiatives. And we already have some initiatives here in the state of São Paulo fostering through these state initiatives. We're fostering more than 20 billion since we started doing some prospection. So we're actually in the phase of launching the numbers and figures. So I'm invite all of you to be a part of that. And we just forward a bill to be approved to exemption some tax for vehicles, electric vehicles, and ethanol-based vehicles as well. So we saw some examples of electrical vehicles here at front. So we want to foster the great potential that the state of São Paulo represents in terms of ethanol. So we're the largest ethanol producer. From 40 to 45% of this, the ethanol produced in Brazil is produced here in the state. And we need to make use of our biomass to produce energy stemming from it, and to achieve the circular economy, to actually carry out everything that we do, we talk about initiatives. So we have, with the same thing we see in logistics when we foster sustainable construction works like water projects that would account 43% of trucks, which would be able to load more than 1.4 billion tons of grains, beans. So with that, you have 20 million tons CO2, less CO2 emissions. So we're actually fostering sustainability as well. So it's just an example that I'm giving to you guys to share everything that we're doing in our secretariat. So we're thinking in each one of the public policies that we do: logistics, water resources, sanitation, energy, the environment. because they are all related, and we need to think about the bias that I'm presenting today, and the fact that Bracell has a partnership with the state in a very responsible way, in a very careful way as well. So I'm running out of time. I'm seeing some signals here. So I'd like to thank you for the invitation again. I'd like to thank the Secretariat of the Environment Logistics. We're here at your disposal to grow together as a group focusing on sustainability. So it's a huge pleasure to be in an event such as this one. Please, you can rely on us, and thank you so much. Congratulations for this event.
Muito obrigada.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank you for your words. So Natalia is the Secretary of the Environment. So thank you so much for this very warm welcome. So I'm pretty sure that this event is going to provide a lot of insights and important information for all of us. So we're all concerned about those themes that are key for the world as a whole. So now let's move forward with our program today. So I'm going to I apologize, I cannot stand still, so I like to walk around so everyone can see us there. So I told them that I would be walking around. But let's move forward with our program and see Bracell's trajectory and its contributions for our country, especially to know there is so much being done for our future. And we also believe that this is going to make a difference, truly. So now I'd like to invite to the stage Márcio Napo. He's the Vice President of Sustainability and Corporate Communication for Bracell. Welcome, Márcio. Welcome, everyone. It's a huge pleasure to be here today to talk about a more sustainable future and also to talk about Bracell's plans for 2030. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, can you help me with presentation? Support team? Okay. By the way, sustainability from end to end. So addressing all the stages of our value chain. And how can we achieve that? So our share value philosophy is about our 5 C's. So everything that we do in Bracell needs to be good for the weather, for biodiversity, but also for communities through our innovative projects, focus on education and making profit and income. It should be good for the clients through tailor-made products, flexible products, and biodegradable products. It should be good for the country as well through investments, logistics, infrastructures, and research and development, producing income and jobs in the countryside of Brazil, and that would be good for Bracell. But how can we actually apply this philosophy in real life? Well, first of all, we're positive in regards to the weather. So our operations in São Paulo are 100% free of fossil fuels. Our areas and our eucalyptus plantation and the areas that we preserve of native vegetation remove about 5 million tons of CO2 every single year. As for biodiversity, this is also a priority for Bracell. So I would say that more than 30% of our areas are preserved with native vegetation. More than 15 years now, we have been monitoring biodiversity in our forest, which is their natural habitat. During this time span, more than 770 species of plants and animals have been cataloged. And we're committed 1-to-1 What do I mean by that? It's an unprecedented initiative to protect the diversity and natural habitats in scale. As our Vice President said, for every hectare of native vegetation, Bracell is going to commit to preserve 1 hectare of native vegetation. So the one-to-one target should be achieved by the end of 2025. Last year, we achieved 82% of this target, which is a very good KPI. And for this year, we expect to protect more than 100,000 hectares in public areas in the states of São Paulo, the state of Mato Grosso do Sul, and the state of Bahia. People and communities, as mentioned before, are at the very core of our sustainability initiatives. As we're touching on the sustainability and diversity agenda, since 2020, Brazil has signed the Women Power Group since 2021. In 2021, we launched our program Diversidade em Ação to leverage this agenda within our company. And last year, we became active members of Rede Mulher Florestal, in a literal translation, the Forest Women League. So we also have Bracell Social, focus on projects focusing on making profit, appreciating local culture, and creating jobs. Last year, we have benefited more than 120,000 people, and this year we expect to help another 150,000 people. As we were able to see, we did a lot over the last few years, but we can go beyond that. So that's why we decided to create Bracell 2030. It's a long-term plan for sustainability based on targets and bold commitments related to the weather, to nature, to the sustainable production of celluloses, people and communities, and it is in line with the UN 2030 agenda. So let's get to know firsthand the targets and commitments that Bracell made for 2030. Now, in terms of the weather, in regards to the weather, we have two very significant targets. So we want to reduce 75% of CO2 emissions per ton of product produced, of celluloses produced. Now, just to explain that a little bit better, when we look at our market, the best figure possible for 2030 would be 0.18%, and we want to get to 0.12% of CO2 per ton of celluloses produced. Besides that, we want to remove or eliminate 25 million tons of CO2 from the atmosphere between 2020 and 2030. Just to give you guys a ballpark of what that represents, this amount of CO2 would be the equivalent of removing from streets about 10 million cars from the streets. So it's much more than the entire fleet of cars in São Paulo that accounts for approximately 6 million vehicles. So, and the most important part is that Bracell is taking concrete actions to achieve those targets. And we're about to wrap up the test with electrical trucks in an unprecedented project in this country to start the replacement of the entire fleet of the celluloses by electrical trucks to reduce our carbon footprint even further. We'll also be installing solar panels on the roof of our new tissue plant in the state of São Paulo, and in courtyards and gardens to produce more green energy and renewable energy in our operations. And there is also an innovation. We're building the largest system of flow control towers to measure the CO2 balance and the water usage both in the planted forests, also in the native forests in Brazil. So that's fundamental so that we can move forward with our understanding of climate change, improving our initiatives and plans, and at the same time, reducing even further our carbon footprint. And for Bracell, the weather and biodiversity walk hand in hand. So that's why we came up with 4 innovative targets to take care of biodiversity and our ecosystem. So we're committed to the preservation of more than 230,000 hectares in preservation areas in the states of São Paulo, Mato Grosso do Sul, and Bahia. Besides that, we want to improve even more the protection of endemic species where threatened, and their habitat are our forests. So that, in order for that to happen, we came up with an innovative methodology to monitor those species and the quality of their natural habitats. We also want to support public bodies when reintroducing animals into nature. So by 2030, you want to double the amount of protected areas according to the relevant bodies to release wild animals in those areas. So we're talking about 3 to 6 areas that are going to be certified over the next 3 years. Naturally, to support more and more the scientific research on preservation and biodiversity. People are talking a lot about the weather right now, but the matter of biodiversity, the corporate protocols of how we can actually protect and produce at the same time, there is a lot of work to be done in that sense. So it's very important that Bracell can support at least 10 projects a year and researches focused on biodiversity. And once again, what are the concrete actions or initiatives that were taken to achieve those targets? In regards to the one-to-one commitment, we recently launched an unprecedented agreement with the state of São Paulo to protect more than 115 hectares and native vegetation for more than 10 years. So we were renewing those contracts every single year, but it doesn't make sense, does it? Because sustainability is focused on the long term, the biodiversity on the long term. So the idea is for us to come up with agreements for the long term as well. That will be key for us to consolidate all the initiatives in all those states. And just to move forward a little bit more and to ensure a sustainable vegetation and landscape, he went back a bit, and to ensure the sustainable landscapes, we're working with some NGOs to develop an innovative system for landscapes that can be implemented for the entire area of Bracell.
But how can we assure cellulose production that it's each time more sustainable? For such, we have 3 goals focused on the economy of natural resources and inputs. We reduce in 47% the consumption of water per ton of cellulose produced. The best number in the sector for 2030 is 25 cubic meters per ton. We intend to reach the water consumption of 16.6 cubic meters per ton of cellulose produced. We also reduce in 90% the volume of industrial solid waste sent to landfill, reaching around 5 kilos per ton of cellulose up to 2030. And we want to increase even further the efficiency in the chemical recovery of soda and lime in the production of cellulose. That will bring a lot of economy of inputs that was never seen in our sector. And again, which are the actions we are executing for reaching these goals? Bracell has built and operates right now the most modern and sustainable cellulose pulp factory in the country. Our operation has innumerous attributes of sustainability which are benchmarking in our sector. For example, we operate with 100% of energy from renewable sources, meaning an operation that is totally free from fossil fuels. The plant is self-sufficient in generating electricity and is generating a surplus of more than 150 megawatts made available for the national grid of energy. This available energy is enough to supply to a city of up to 3 million inhabitants like Brasilia city, for example. And the lower atmospheric emissions of our sector in case of particulates and a novelty, has no smell. This is mainly important when we're talking about the communities that are surrounding the operation. We also have the lower consumption of water in the Brazilian industry for produced ton, and it was never seen in the state of São Paulo the only operation to operate with tertiary treatment of effluents, returning to Tietê River where we collect our water, a water with better quality than the one we collected. And to advance even further in the concept of circular economy in our operation, we're building, along with Veolia, world leader in solutions for waste treatment, a plant for manufacturing of fertilizers that will use waste from potassium sulfate coming from the pulp production. These fertilizers will be used in our forestry area. Talking a little bit about people, starting with our diversity agenda, to promote equality and opportunity to women, we want to reach at least 30% of the proportion of women in leadership positions up to 2030. We also want to build a work environment that is each time more inclusive. Our goal is to reach in 2030 at least 90% of positive assessment among collaborators from diversity groups regarding the respect and equity conditions in our work environment. And again, talking about communities, to promote entrepreneurship from women in field, at least 60% of the social projects and impact businesses supported by Bracell must mandatorily to be led by women. And again, talking again about people in the center of our operation and sustainability operations, we want to promote the income generation among families and communities, and the goal, increasing 20% the income of these families which are participating in social projects of Bracell up to 2030, and increasing 30% the quality of the education measured by the proficiency in Portuguese and mathematics in public schools with social projects supported by Bracell in areas with lower income of education, lower index of education. As we could see, through concrete actions, ambitious goals and commitments, Bracell wants to help to build a better future to the pulp and paper industry in Brazil, and being positioned as one of the leader voices in sustainability in our sector. Thank you very much.
Sorry, desculpa.
Muito.
Thank you very much. We thank you for your words here. We can see there's a valuable commitment of Bracell in the next years for the future. This is vital. Thank you very much, Marcio. Good luck for the entire Bracell team in fulfilling these goals. The society, all of us, thank you so much from the bottom of our heart. Let's go to our chat with the experts. We'll start with the panel Agenda 2030, how companies can advance in sustainability agenda and generating positive impact to the country and society. to debate this theme, I have the pleasure to invite experts and leaders from many areas that are deep in this agenda, and they are working every day to change the future, because the future is being made right now in the present. I invite to the stage Paulo Hartung, economist, speaker with a long public career. Paulo was a state and federal representative, mayor of Vitória, director of BNDES, senator of the Republic, and governor of Espírito Santo State for 3 mandates. He participated in private initiative as administrative counselor of EDP Brazil and Bracell Cellulose. Currently, he commands the Brazilian Industry of Trees Association, gathering the productive chain of planted trees for industrial purposes. He's also part of the Council of Renova BR. He participates in the Institute of Studies in Health, created by Arminio Fraga. He's member of the Council of Valor, and he's part of the Council of Brazilian Center of International Relations. Welcome, Paulo. Thank you so much. And to join us, Liv Costa, Director of Corporate Management of CETEBSB, the environmental company of the state of São Paulo. Liv is graduated in environmental engineering by Unesp University from Sorocaba, and she was monitor of FIA Business School in the business management and company valuation course. More than 15 years environmental area in action in the public and private sectors. She was a server from the Secretariat of Environment from the state of São Paulo. She's been through many multinational consultancies by the Federation of Industries of the state of São Paulo, FIESP, and she acted as an expert in the Department of Sustainable Development in projects supporting the environmental compliance, foment to adoption of good practices in the sector, among other actions. A round of applause to Liv. Our next guest is Mauricio Voivodic, president of WWF Brazil since 2017. Mauricio is forest engineer, graduated by the University of São Paulo with master's in environmental sciences. His studies were focused in non-statal governance systems. He has a professional career in the Institute of Handling and Forestry Certification, Agricultural one, where he been through many functions and areas of actions. He was counseling director in 2 international organizations, ISEO and Sustainable Agriculture Network, steering committee from Tropical Forest Alliance 2020, and fellow from the Climate Strategies Accelerator Program. Welcome, Mauricio. Thank you. And please, also with us, Luis Carlos Dutra, VP from Corporate Matters at Bracell, working along with the corporate communication teams, sustainability teams, and legal teams. Dutra has more than 36 years of professional experience in companies like Johnson & Johnson, Dow, Unilever, Votorantim, Mover Holdings. He led the public relations areas in media, corporate communication, sustainability, and governmental relations. Dutra is graduated in law by Pontifícia Universidade Católica, and he has an executive MBA by the University of São Paulo. Welcome. A round of applause to him. I would ask you to please take your seats. It's a pleasure to be here, to be the mediator of this debate with them. And I would also like to request you, please, for the ones that want to make questions, we have the QR code. Can we put it back on screen? Wonderful. The QR code is here, so you can make questions here to our experts. The ones that are following us online in the Valor Econômicos network, you can also participate, sending questions, comments. Your participation is very important. It's vital, in fact, so we know exactly the matters you want to be approached here, that we want to talk about it here. So please, in the end of this conversation, have this privilege of starting with the questions to them. But in the end, we'll have a space so the experts can answer your doubts. So let's start. Let's approach a really important theme of climate change. I know this is in everybody's mind here. As you all know, the world has a joint goal of carbon emissions reduction to prevent the global warming overcomes 1.5 degrees Celsius until the end of this century. But unfortunately, what we've been seeing is there is a huge chance that going over this limit up to 2027. So it's clear it's necessary to reinvent our way of life, all of us, and also the way of doing business to change the scenario that's being imposed before us. In this sense, we're going to discuss with each one of these players here how can we contribute in this transformation journey, and mainly what the companies can do to transform this future. I would like to start with Dutra. There are many reports along the years of a possible relation of negative impact of the eucalyptus plantations over the water resources of the production regions. My question is, how do you see this matter, and how Bracell manages this important environmental aspect that may affect both local biodiversity and the surrounding communities? Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. The first thing, this is a false myth. If we look to the quantity of water that eucalyptus produces, it's equivalent to the quantity of native vegetation. And if you look at this monthly, comparing with soy and corn, the annual consumption would be the same. The first thing is the false myth. More important, we're talking about transformation. So we have an important scenario, which is Brazil. Brazil in the last 3 decades, and Paulo can add on that with the other peers here. The evolution of the forestry-based sector and pulp was extraordinary based on 2 main matters: the best techniques on sustainability, management and productivity. When we talk about Bracell, I would like to highlight 3 phases of the process. Marcel told about that, Praveen also. Some numbers on the logical sequence of this process. First, any forest area, any forest development, we have a deep work to understand the soil on the water resources point of view, the surrounding conditions, and more important, we focus the development in degraded pasture areas. The first thing, after defined this area, we have a huge care on the plan of the plantation with a structured criterion in the sustainability point of view. We adopt a technique of minimum cultivation using the smaller possible area of the soil in terms of productivity, and we look to our R&D. We have a genetic and robust development. The eucalyptus is more adaptable to the local regions and more productive control and with less area to serve the demand. The third pillar integrated to these 2 ones is the climate monitoring to try to anticipate some trends and help on the process. So this care we have in the 3 steps, research, analysis, planning, and monitoring, it emphasizes something clear here. This industry, the base of this business is the region, is the forestry base. After transforming the industry, where we gain, what we win this game is the forestry base. For Bracell, this is vital. Besides the principles we have here, in continuous improvement. 2 examples. Besides this process, we have now, we have some plants, photovoltaic plants being built in our, with energetic self-efficiency, and Marcio and Praveen told here 1-to-1. It's a pioneer example for each 1 hectare eucalyptus, one of native vegetation hectare. This combination of forest planted with native vegetation in a harmonious way will create an environmental presentation that is higher and will also preserve biodiversity. First, so we see this as a false myth. Then this is the base of our business, and all the investment starts from that. The forestry base is the differential in our business, and we deal with that in a criterious way, in a careful way. Wonderful. Paulo has the microphone, so it's for you the second question. In this sense, what Dutra brought to us, what is the importance, in your view, of the forestry-based sector in this macroeconomic context of the country, based on the high level of investment and employment income generation of this industry along the years, especially the perspectives of growing investments if compared to other sectors of the economy? And if you allow me, I would like to join with another question. If you could list the main contributions of the sector in the economic growth and modernization of the country, specifically in this innovation, sustainability, formation, and qualification of professionals area.
The question is excellent. A lot of questions into one. Well, I have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to be brief. So let me start by saying the following, which is it's very important what we're experiencing today, this partnership between Editora Globo and Valor Econômico and Bracell. So it's very much in line with what I advocate for a long time ago. So historically speaking, companies would report to their shareholders. But the modern company needs to report to civil society. So this is a space in which companies like Bracell need to report to society as a whole. So that's the right behavior in this godforsaken time that we're living right now. So you ask about the impact on macroeconomics. So specifically on the private sector in Brazil, the sector of cultivated trees, I would say it stands out in terms of investment. So our investment portfolio goes beyond 68 billion reais. And if you look at the largest private investment besides oil and gas and concessions, I would say it's in this sector. So if you look over the last few years, you would get this result. So this sector has a huge impact on jobs. So it's macroeconomics with a social bias. So today, we produce jobs, we create jobs, either directly or indirectly, that will go above 2.6 billion reais. So it's a very important impact in our society. I would like to comment on what Luis said. So the sector will plant, harvest 9.6 million hectares. So just for a comparison, and livestock or farming, we have 160 million hectares, and we're returning 9.9 million hectares. So in this sector, I would say it's something that stands out because it plants, it harvests, and replant with those 9.7 million hectares, but it also protects 6.7 million hectares. So what does that mean? It means that, first of all, it's an area of the size of the state of Rio de Janeiro. And where is it growing over the last few years? What hasn't grown? We know we have a climate crisis, and we need to deal with that in a multilateral fashion and not in a unilateral fashion. So our ambassador, João Carlos da Francesa, along with me, he always presses on that. So the way that we are going to cope with this challenge, it needs to be multilateral. So this sector, is in the right way. It's moving the right way, meaning that the products are recycled. Most of them are biodegradable. So it's a contribution a significant one to macroeconomics, and I would say that the last year we got records in terms of production rate, but also the production of celluloses, paper, a record in exports as well. So we saw the figures, and we ranked as the second largest producers of celluloses in the world and the largest exporter in the world. I'm running out of time. So the sector has a lot to. There is some room for improvement, but our challenge is first of all to celebrate our victories. But we need to know what to do. We need to do it better. You need to improve every week and every month. Throughout time, you need to be forever improving. But there is a very important insight for Brazil. And what is that teaching? That we're going through a disindustrialization, meaning we have a part in the industry and a part in the agribusiness. So the Brazilian industry is asking for subsidies. So the sector is always requesting for subsidies, especially in Brasilia, with the local authorities and leaders from the public sector. But the sector has also sought after support around the world, and it's competing in Asia, in Europe, it's competing in the United States, in Canada, in Mexico, and many other places. So I think I ran out of time. I wasn't able to reply the entire question. No worries. We'll still have more time for you to reply. So it was actually quite impressive, your timing. Now, Mauricio, I want to know about how the industries of forest spaces can help Brazil in this transition to a low carbon emission economy, and how they can be in line with the commitments made in the Paris Agreement. And how do you see the engagement and contribution of those companies within this agenda to meet the Brazilian NDCs? And if you can also, I know I'm also using your time with long questions. If you don't have enough time, we'll have some extra time at the end. So how can the industries of forest spaces can help with the preservation of biodiversity, natural landscapes in the regions that they work in? And I'm referring particularly to the Cerrado and Mata Atlântica biomes. So thank you so much for the invitation. First of all, congratulations, Bracell, for this amazing event. I actually agree with you. It's very important to present to society some targets. It's absolutely necessary to be a part of this debate. Whether the targets are good or not, this is what we need to debate. But I think Bracell needs to be congratulated for organizing this event. And now it needs to start to monitor everything that we're fighting for. So we need to monitor and report about the targets. So this is what the private sector actually needs to do in terms of responsibility towards civil society. Now, in the WWF Brazil, I think these questions were actually very good, because in our company, we look at these two global crises that we're going through. So the climate change crisis and the loss of biodiversity. So these two crises are intertwined. So it's very hard to talk about climate changes without getting into the loss of biodiversity, especially in a debate like this one when we're talking about the soil usage a lot. So it's very important to pay attention to that. And I actually really like the targets that are combined between the loss of biodiversity and the other targets in terms of sustainability. First of all, we need to acknowledge that the forest sector in Brazil, in regards to climate change and in regards to biodiversity, it's quite advanced in comparison to other sectors in Brazilian economy. So it dates a long time back, investing in the implementation of the forest code. So this sector was really important when reviewing the forest code of Brazil, both in protected areas and also forested areas, with eucalyptus and native vegetation combined. So this sector, we need to acknowledge this sector. It's beyond other sectors, but it has a lot to do. So one behavior is typical for people that are ahead, or companies that are ahead, especially in regards to CO2 emissions and biodiversity, and this is, by the way, one of the most important things we work in our company, is deforestation. So our sector as a whole has been committed to deforestation. So there's no company advocating for deforesting, even if it's legal, for a while now, for at least 10 or 15 years, even maybe more. I'm not sure exactly. Now, as for the agribusiness sector, you see many companies that are still advocating for the deforestation. So they're still buying meat and soil. And soils from areas that were deforested. So it makes it stand out in that sense, in this regard. So some of the things that in the planted forest, in a way, it stands out because it has a structure in comparison to the agribusiness. It has a more centralized infrastructure, and it occupies large areas in terms of landscape. So first of all, it's managing water resources. So all the planning and the good practices that they put into it, it goes to not to jeopardize our water resources. Now, the second important thing is for us recovery. So we have a very bold target and ambition, and the forest sector in Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, it's the sector that is contributing to this target the most, because many of the companies that are, by the way, are here have targets and huge projects of forest recovery. So this is a very important theme. Not only recovery, but also protection is very important. So investment in protecting public areas. So this would be the right way to go. Just to wrap it up, I think there is a role of being a part of the public debate from a perspective or a more advanced sector in comparison to other sectors. So we're a part of the debates, and I would like to highlight that this is a very key or fundamental role for Brazilian economy. We need leaders. They're actually going towards a CO2 neutral economy, and I noticed that the sector, the cellulose sector and forest preservation, they play a fundamental role, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be doing that even further over the coming year. I'm going to reduce the size of my question. So, Livio, I'm going to straight to the point, okay? So, how do you understand the role of the forest space as a source of socioeconomic development in the countryside of the state of São Paulo? Hello, morning everyone. Thank you so much for this invitation. Thank you, Bracell and Valor Econômico. It's a huge pleasure to be here with you today. I feel quite honored. As Paulo said, I was quite impressed with the figures that you presented, the fact there was a country in the world in terms of cellulose production, and this has an effect on the state of São Paulo, especially in the countryside regions. The economic development intertwined with the agribusiness sectors, like you said, this presents or provides to this region direct and indirect jobs. It also produces feedstock or raw materials besides paper and cellulose. So it helps other sectors like construction sector. So it has this potential to develop other industries and other sectors in a very compatible way with the sustainability plans. So it's something that has been happening in a very coherent way with biodiversity. We're preserving biodiversity with the proper handling of this biodiversity. And there is also the matter of supporting the achievement of goals of Race to Zero. So it's a project that the state of São Paulo is committed to get to economic development. And in order to do that, you need to carry out some initiatives that support the CO2 emissions reduction. So for the state of São Paulo, this is very much in line with our plans. Okay, awesome, Dutra. So I'm going straight to the point. So if you had to tell us, what would you say that makes Bracell stand out from other companies, take into consideration everything that people raised here in this panel. Okay, I would say that Bracell would stand out. First of all, it's a Brazilian company, part of RDE, but it's very faithful to a philosophy which is combining business strategy with sustainability as two sides of the same coin. And this is going to be translated into business. So if you look at our bases, the forest bases, logistic, clients, the surroundings, the company is focusing on adding value in each step or each phase of this process. So I'm very happy with our new corporate stance and our branding. So we're trying to deliver that when we're trying to add value to each link in that chain, both in terms of human resources, investments, and technology. Now, I talked about the forest spaces, which is at the very core of our company. Now, if you look at the industrial sector, we invested 15 billion reais in the largest cellulose plant in the world, which is also the greenest one. And all the capex, all the investment was thought based on technologies combined with sustainability. So for instance, this plant produces energy from a byproduct, and this byproduct will produce energy, and the spare energy will go to electrical grid, which is equivalent to 150 mega kilowatts, which is enough for a city with 3 million inhabitants. So, and Márcio touched on the water sector, water resources as well. So we have a project with 3 phases of water capture here in the state of São Paulo. So we're going to return to the Tietê River the equivalent of 97% of the total amount of water that is going to have a higher quality. And the third point, or third example, is the decarbonization process that we're going through. So we're reducing 5.3 million tons of CO2 emissions in this process. So when you go a little bit further in that supply chain, then we get to the tissue plants. So we use this philosophy of aligning productivity rates and sustainability. So we're going to have photovoltaic panels for roof, and this is going to be the largest project in Latin America for focus on that. And in regards to logistics, we have our fleet that we're changing all for electrical trucks or vehicles. So just as important as that is our surroundings. So our social projects, they're just as important as the other projects. So we directly or indirectly, we got to 350,000 people by means of 49 projects. There's an educational basis and an entrepreneurial basis as well. So green drug starts and green communities. And this creates a positive impact. And I went through other sectors and learned something quite interesting. The relationship with community goes beyond the license you operate, meaning that you need to be extra careful when you're dealing with community on a daily basis. So we ran a survey recently with an international institute with a rep track technology. So they measure reputation. And we noticed that the stakeholders that appreciate Bracell the most, they focus on this relationship within this community. So we follow up and we go ahead with this process. So I call this a virtual process in which part of the material investment is important. So Bracell has invested in Brazil throughout the last 20 years. I would say 15 billions in lençóis, plus 5 billions in the tissue factory. So it would amount a total of 20 billions. But I would say we invested over the last years more than $6 billion. So we have produced more than 10,000 jobs. In Lençóis Paulista in the last year, out of 2,700 regular jobs, 90% were Bracell. So, and this becomes part of the society, and all of that is related to the philosophy of our founder. So it can only become a good for the company if it's good for community, for the weather, for climate, for our clients, either B2B or B2C, and for contributing to society as a whole. So this is a fact, guys. We breathe that in every single day. This is part of our DNA. Okay, so you touched on technology. I'm actually going to talk about that with Paulo. I want to talk about green technologies, which is something that I love. I'm a technology enthusiast. So what are those technologies that are being used in this industry? And what about the new applications of cellulose so as to produce more sustainable products in our daily lives? So I mentioned that we have a very large portfolio in Brazil, an investment portfolio, right? Which stands out for people paying attention to the Brazilian economy. So part of this investment is focused on innovation, science, and technology. In matter of fact, the basis of the sector starts with scientific principles. So people will say Brazil has a lot of soil and sunlight. So Brazil in the 70s would produce around 10 cubic meters per hectare at the time. So it went from 10 to 36 cubic meters now. That's not sunlight, not the soil. Though this is the effect of labs, of applying science. And it's quite remarkable in our companies. So we moved forward in terms of new usages. So when you decompose a tree, you can split it down into fibers, and celluloses stem from those fibers. But there is a glue. And why is that rigid or stiff? There is a glue, it's called lignin. So you separate the lignin, which produces black liquor. You can produce energy out of it. So this industrial complex revolves around green energy, clean energy. It gets you 86% of the total amount. By the way, we're going to issue a report saying that 86% of our energy is clean energy. And we're going to go beyond that. Research are providing us new usages. So I'm going to give you guys an example, a very cool one. So you have a mixed box. In it, there is aluminum, metal, and plastic, and paper. So the industry is trying to develop a paper that is going to replace the other two elements, making recycling a lot easier later on. So this is just an example. Our sector also produces clothes. In the old days, they would say, they only produce paper. Now you cannot say that anymore. That is not true anymore. Because if you see viscoses, it stems from a tree. Or other types of celluloses are producing other types of fabrics. So the tree sector is present in 6% of the textile sector in the world, in its industry. So new usages and new applications are really important for that. And I would say the sky is the limit, and the sector loves to innovate. So when you see this plant at Lençóis Paulista, it uses 0% of fossil fuels.
The plant that's being built right now, it's zero consumption as well. The guys from one company or the other, they don't like to mention the other company, but I used to do that. They're jealous of the sector, but I talk about them. It will be zero. This is a great example. It's a good run, a good rush. Self-oven, the sector, autos oven, they are changing the base of fuel supplying, leaving fossil fuel. The sector could be accommodated. It's interesting because the sector, if you look to the balance emission removal, the sector is negative in carbon, but it's not accommodated. It's not stuck. If you get a company like this one is seeking a accelerated decarbonization process. We had a presentation at BNDES. They are studying many sectors simultaneously, and the sector is differentiated in the search for solutions. Gasification from biomass it's a step further, which is happening in Lençóis Paulistas plant and also Ribas do Rio Pardo plant, and it's running all of it's comprising the entire sector. So the sector believes in that and is seeking to innovate and also to advance on the solution of severe problems we have in the company in the country, like the infrastructural one. But I'm not talking about that. I promised I would be a disciplined person. And what is the strategy of the São Paulo's government to encourage long-term investment in green infrastructure and also generation of renewable energy? Green infrastructure. It's interesting. People talks a lot about carbon compensation, and we have this point on the importance of resilience, having adaptation as well in climate change, because despite all the effort of mitigating it, there are the big risk of being necessary. The temperature is going to rise, and we need to be prepared. There's this matter of adaptation, and green infrastructure is related with the point of need of adaptation. Besides mitigation, we've made many capacitations. So CETESB is doing the capacitation for climate adaptations of the city in the metropolitan region. We made it in Baixada Santista area and enabling the cities to make the climate adaptation plans. And these plans are necessary and encouraged to include green infrastructure in their planning. And in the qualifications, we support the city to create the projects and seek for funding for these projects with green infrastructure. So the state of São Paulo is starting with a favorable situation in our energy regarding renewable energy is already 58.8% source of renewable energy, above the average of the country, way over the average of the world. This provides us a big advantage. But anyway, the state plan of energy that's being elaborated up to 2050 state plan of energy, it foresees many projects of energetic transition. So as Natalia said in the beginning, it was mapped by Invest São Paulo, more than 16.8 billion of investment in progress in the state of São Paulo, compatible with energetic transition, mainly many of them in the energy sector, others in mining, others in equipment sector. We've been prepared not only regarding equipment. We'll need new batteries. We want to prepare the state of São Paulo to serve the energetic transition as a whole, fomenting all the industries and activities that contribute to the energetic transition, and much compatible with the movement we can see now, changing fields in industry, installation of solar panels. All of that is within the energetic transition plan of the state of São Paulo, in the way of also encourage fiscal incentives for vehicles. The state foresees that, and we're moving towards this direction. And also, historically, we have the auction energy with a lot of renewable sources. This is the way we've been walked with the support with the private sector and many actions of public-private partnerships. It has helped in the energetic transition, and we see a lot of potential of the state in providing hydrogen, making this change to serve the future hydrogen market. Mauricio, how do you see the development of this carbon credit market in Brazil based in the regulatory landmark being discussed at the Congress? we're just sleeping and waking up over this matter every day. If Paulo wants to add on something later about this question, feel free to do it. We're always talking about this in coalition. First, I'm following the discussion of a regulated carbon market idea in Brazil for almost 10 years. It's being discussed. Is a discussion that we had high and lows in the sense that now we're going for it and nothing happened, and bad texts and better ones. And it's not a recent discussion. There is a lot of accrual, and this is important. And I think that the current PL is a good project. There's the law project. It has the potential to be a base that we really, in the legislative, regulatory point of view, but from a mechanism of trade of carbon credits, it will encourage the Brazilian economy in the sense of a low emission of carbon. Then, compared to many other versions and previous projects, I think this one is really the one that I feel it has many features. I'm not going to further details, but many features that allow it to work in Brazil. And the regulated market of carbon credit in Brazil to work, it needs to be well structured. So it seems to me it's a huge advance. And it's now at the Congress, running the Congress, and there are some discussions surrounding about joining with other projects, connecting. I have my problems with that. Some things have sense, but I'm afraid we'll lose this essence of the project that was approved by the Senate. That it seems to me, in the point of view of the regulatory framework for the carbon market, it seems positive. There's a matter that we've been discussed a lot that unfortunately it was changed in the bill in the Senate in the final minutes before the approval, which was the removal of the entire agricultural and cattle breeding sector from the market in first place, whether in direct or indirect emissions. And I understand, I've been participated, I've been listening to a lot of experts and leaders in the agro sector of the struggle to consider the carbon market for the agro-business sector. These are feasible information at this point, but if we look to the change of use of the land plus agro and cattle breeding sector, so the regulated market of carbon that will leave 2/3 outside the market, you are limiting a lot the potential. And I think for land use area, there's a huge positive potential of finally starting through carbon credits. We can remunerate things like protection of native areas in excedents of legal reserve projects, reforestation projects, good practices of agricultural and forest production. It needs to be remunerated in the carbon market. But if you exclude all this area in first place, you will limit this potential. We have all the methodologies to do that. This valuation, no, we don't. But when putting within the bill, it will make possible to put energy to develop all these things, and we could move towards this methodological gap. So we have this position of it's a good project. There's a good framework, a regulatory framework, but we're really sorry that it's advancing and excluding important sector as the agricultural one. But looking to the industry and all the other sectors, despite the agro discussion, it would be a vector for propelling the Brazilian economy with low carbon. I would have a lot of questions for you here, but I received the ones from the audience through the QR code and the ones from the audience, okay? The audience here, because it's really important for us to comprise their doubts, to approach their doubts. Yuri Amorim is asking to Dutra, are there any studies showing the direct linking of sustainability investments with the increase of revenue and profit of companies in average medium term? How Bracell intends to work with suppliers and customers on the promotion of sustainability focused on results. And I would like you to be more objective for this one so we can answer the biggest possible number of questions. I think the best position we have in the entire business chain, the best way of generating results, not only in what we have direct control, but also directly with suppliers and clients. And the best answer is how the sustainability matter directly related to investment is an intrinsic matter to us. We're not able to think in investment and return without a relation with sustainability. The company invested 15 billion plus 5, 20 with the driving sustainability is directing the discussion with customers, suppliers, and other partners in the same logics. Also to assure consistency, because it's not able to be omnipresent by itself, solving all the matters with investment, direct investment. So the selections of supplier, discussion of best product to client, the development, the community development in our operations, the preservation that is discussed, the one-to-one that we did, the relation with the public power, public authority, it's part of the company. I cannot imagine a discussion about profit. As you said early in your talk, you mentioned, I don't know the percentage, but the study shows how many companies in Brazil, 61% and only 39 in fact. This is a little bit the answer. It's in the heart of our business. The theme is sustainability, and sustainability will consolidate in helping, but sustainability, I don't have much time in the company, but since the first day in the organization, there was no conversation in any point of the business change that was not related with the return on investment with positive impact in sustainability in the environmental and social point of view. It has to be a concern from all over the company in a horizontal way, from all the areas, segments, departments. A question from Paulo, not Artung. The person didn't put the last name. It's to Mauricio. Supporting the relevance of substantially increasing the native forest area. I ask if WWF can see and support initiatives of sustainable economic exploration in these areas, and if these should not be much more developed. I don't know if I got it, but the forest restoration projects, they have economic component that is extremely important. It's one of the ways of making feasible forestry preservation projects is the economic use, whether wood in medium or long term, but we have projects of carbon also, and other products, the combination with cocoa, with rubber. So we have a series of exploration activities, sustainable ones, as we say, but making use of forest restoration areas, economic use, following out the rules, respecting permanent preservation areas, all of that. But it's a way of making feasible this economy of native forests, the economy of forest restoration is one of our priorities at WWF and many other organizations. We've been working a lot for creating value to forest restoration activities, so we are able to scale the way it's necessary. Anonymous question, the person is not identified. What is the role of public-private partnerships? How can they improve local economy to generate employment, income, and well-being of communities, for example? Is that a good way? I'll try to be short, but it's really important. We've been investing a lot in public-private partnerships. The the engagement of everyone is really important. SDGs talk about this a lot, about partnerships. Partnerships are really important to reach the goals as a society, and the public-private partnerships have supported a lot the initiatives. Recently, we have with Bracell for Fundação Florestal a partnership to help the forest plantation in our state. So another thing that we've seen is the state has some struggles, difficulties on fast investment and speed in doing the contractions or technology investments, and the partnership with the private initiative helps a lot in that. So we also have an intentions protocol with Florestar that supports the association in the state of São Paulo, trying to bring technology because the industry is applying already in their plantation, assessing the volume of the plantation, satellite monitoring with high resolution images. So how can we bring that and change this technology to monitor, for example, native vegetation growth? Can we use the same technology? So much of the technology and the processes that's being developed for private initiative can also support a lot the public sector and the development of all our sustainability actions. So it's really important. We see the future for that, and these moments are excellent to approach, to get closer and walk together towards the SDGs.
Without a shadow of doubt. Okay, another anonymous question. So, how can the government or civil associations can help with women's participation and leadership roles in this sector? Well, I think they can help a lot. So, IBA, for instance, had carried out an initiative. The history of the sector is originally male, so it's important to stress that. And we carried out an initiative of carrying out training sections for women, and it was a behavior coming from the association in terms of diversity and inclusion, and it was amazing. So we had the first cycle carried out. It was super successful. Then we ran a second cycle of training sessions to divulge this information and to show something super important to me, which is the fact that this extraordinary diversity, if placed within the companies, is going to improve the productivity rate, it's going to improve the creativity, and improve even the outcomes. So my dream would be to have this approved by Brazilian Congress and to have this diversity in the Congress to see our Brazilian faces, metaphorically speaking, being represented. So this association plays this very important role. Now, if we focus on the climate change issue and the loss of biodiversity, I have something to say. Governments are key because they are the ones debating and coming up with multilateral agreements, but it's crystal clear that besides governments, if we don't have an active civil society, and within this civil society, we don't have companies with clear stances and standpoints, we wouldn't be able to deliver what we need to deliver, which is a better planet for our children and grandchildren and for future generations to come. So this is the message that I would like to convey to you, which is linked to everything that we touched on today. So we need to be ready to do that. And we need those targets, those commitments, and we need them to turn into initiatives so that we can actually provide a better planet for future generations to come. I love this message, this quote that you just created. So in the old days, we would hear people saying, oh, it's great to work for them, because when I look at them, they know exactly what I'm thinking about. Wow, that's horrible, actually. If the person know what you think, you have no innovation. So ideally, you would have diversity so as to have more innovation and more creativity. And yes, by the way, we have science factored into that. So we have diverse teams. The diverse teams are more creative, they produce more, and they produce more income. Yes, I was not talking about money, but you're right, they produce more. No, I'm really talking the entrepreneur's language here. Okay, so I'm not sure how we're on time, but I want to go ahead. Is that all right? Can I go ahead? Okay. I'm loving this conversation. So I want to ask something to all of you. So, by the way, if you want to add anything or comment on something that I didn't touch on, feel free. So, what's your take on the long-term initiatives proposed by companies? How can those plans help fostering civil society to come up with a more sustainable and more inclusive future? So I'm going to start with Dutra. I think there are two dimensions to it. The first dimension is the entrepreneurial dimension. So throughout this entire morning, we saw an integrated management. This is not an option. It's mandatory. Now, if we look 20 years ago when we started talking about sustainability in a more structured way, the concept at that time was the triple bottom line. So the outcome, the environmental, and the social aspects. So this concept evolved over time, and what Paulo said is fundamental, but at that time, this was a commitment made to a more limited sector at the time. So today, it became a commitment towards society. So then we came up with the governance concept. And in the case of Bracell, it's quite clear how the governance goes from top to bottom, from the founder to interns, in terms of strategies, investments, monitoring. So ideally speaking, it should be GES, so the order should be different. Start with governance instead of environmental. Now, more important than that is to look at these people here. We can see the public power, corporate leadership, which is a very important representation for civil society in such an important theme like biodiversity. So it's important to have that in mind, looking at the individual and at an integrated ecosystem. So obviously, Bracell's goal is to achieve its agenda by 2030. It's to show that this company is committed with Brazil in the long term, meaning that we have a positive dependence towards other sectors. So I think this is the driving force that makes us transform it. And now the cellulose sector in Brazil is a great example because we're the largest exporter in the world, the second largest producer in the world, and they're still investing on it. So transformation cannot be achieved by oneself. It needs to be jointly. So even if you have some discrepancies or disagreements, we need to converge to some common ground, and that's the way that I see it. Okay, Liv, I want to hear from you on the same matter. Now, as I heard Luis speaking, I remember some personal memories. I'm an environmental engineer. I graduated in 2008, and at the time, when I got my college degree, I was talking to a friend of mine who graduated from FGV. We were talking about accountability and responsibility, and she told me, I learned in business school that the role of the company is to produce profit. And the environment is a responsibility of the public sector. So at that time, they weren't taught that the environment is up to the private sector as well. So today, the debate's quite different. It's crystal clear that this is also up to the company. That is also up to the private sector to respond to civil society, to have accountability and responsibility, to present development, not only sharing the burdens, but sharing the bonuses as well. So to develop together. So this is crystal clear, and I'm super happy to know that, as Luis said, there are some times People will diverge or disagree, but this joint participation is very important. It's key. Everyone's commitment is important. The exchange of ideas is very relevant as well. And I see that we have evolved. This theme has been developed a lot. I know that a lot has changed since 2008, but the way that people see this theme has changed a lot. The transparency of the availability of data and information also instrumentalizes society. So society is now able to judge poorly or not the way that companies are acting, the government are acting. So, and everyone is on check now. Companies are being judged in terms of their acts and initiatives. So that's super important sediment. Okay, Paulo, I also want to hear from you, Paulo, about this final question. Feel free. Mauricio? There are three things that I would like to highlight here. The first thing is the urgency of the matter. So most days we're seeing on the news extreme and severe climate events or environmental crisis. So like you mentioned, Liv, the green economy is fundamental now because climate change and crisis, they're all present. Now, and from a perspective of biodiversity loss, if we do the things like we're doing now, we're getting to a turning point. We'll get to a crisis. So I would like to say that our generation got this as a gift, ironically speaking. So we got this issue that we inherited, and we need to deal with that in this generation. We need to be able to say to tell history we're a part of this crisis, because the previous generation, they didn't know everything that we know now, and the next generation, they won't have the time and the conditions to carry out the change because it might be too late. So we are in the generation that has this urgency. So we need to be more incisive in our initiatives. We need to be bolder in our targets and actually deliver the changes that we want to. So the first point I would like to highlight is urgency. The second one is related to accountability, and the third one will be about vulnerability. So in terms of responsibility or accountability, given the urgency that we have, we're not going through that stage or that point in time in which we say, this is up to all. We need to engage everyone. You know, okay, it's a cool idea. It's a cool slogan, but we need to acknowledge that some actors are more responsible or accountable than others. And the more power you have, the more responsibility you have as well. And that needs to be said, that needs to be spoken. So we shouldn't be wary when talking about that. It's not who has the most responsibility. It's really about demanding more from those who have more. And last but not least, I'd like to touch on vulnerability. The most vulnerable ones, they need a quicker support. They need help, really. So look at what's going on with the droughts in the state of Amazonas. You know that communities, they always suffer with droughts, and the other years they're suffering with floods. So it's preposterous. It's ludicrous. And we're seeing people debating in Congress the reduction of indigenous protection rights. So the most vulnerable ones, they should be the ones that we focus first. They need to be a priority and part of our conversation on these actions. Okay, we're getting to the end of this event and our time. I want to get back to a theme that I addressed before. So in this sector, in a country that is going through a very quick decentralization process, we're delivering a new plant every 1.5 years. So I would say this sector is evolving on top or degraded soil. So where do we plant the most? We plant the most with soils that have been degraded. So if you visit the state of Mato Grosso do Sul and you see the conversion of livestock and then turned into forest area, they're super impressed. I, by the way, was touched by that. When you see that being turned and converted. When I talked to local producers, I was even more impressed when they touched on the type of profits that they were making by making this conversion. So I think there is a very important takeaway in that, or teaching, which is that the world needs food. In Brazil, can move forward with the supply of this food in a very sustainable way without deforestation. By the way, we can actually make recovery. We can recover some of our forests. So this is a banner that we need to raise. The world needs clean energy. We have a very different electrical grid, matrix, actually. And the way their electrical grid has been designed is like a dream for other countries, the rich countries in the world. By the way, we have a lot of biomass, and our sector is spearheading this experience here in Brazil with biomass. So our country has a lot of sunlight. We have constant winds in many regions. It could be a provider of new clean energies, as you mentioned, like green hydrogen, and São Paulo has been developing that. So there are many teachings and takeaways to get from that. And the most important one would be the following. I'm trying to summarize your speech. Good intentions are not enough. We need to concrete actions. So when Bracell would make Neném Prancha, a soccer player, would say the following: those who strive get it, those who lose it don't get it. So when Bracell tries to talk to society, presenting their plan, submitting it to judgment, to support, criticism, I get so enthusiastic by it. So that's the positive side or the upside of this meeting, because we start with good ideas and we go to concrete action. So Mauricio will always say everyone is responsible, but we are more responsible than others. So those who started the Industrial Revolution, they were probably aware they were more responsible than others for this process. So we need justice or even fairness for this environment. So this event, getting back to a soccer language, it's an amazing goal. So we can go to new events and be able to I set that target and I was able to meet that target. I went beyond that target. And I made even more progress in regards to the decarbonization process and the productive process of Bracell at a global level. So congratulations, everyone. I want to give a very energetic congratulations to the Bracell team. It's an awesome team. It's a top-notch team. So a round of applause for this team, please. And I would like a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much, Dutra, Liv, and Paulo, Mauricio. So this conversation was inspiring. It was so enlightening as well for all of us. So it was very good to be part of this event. And at the end of the day, we know that we need more and more engaged people and practical initiatives as debated today. As Mauricio said, some people are more responsible than others, but we need more engagement. And we need initiatives, not only intentions, as Paulo said. So thank you so much, everyone. For me, this was amazing. I've learned so much, and I believe you too. So I would like to thank the audience for the participation, for the questions that you posed to us. I would also like to thank for those who are following online. So thank you so much. This was very enriching and inspiring. And by the way, we're getting off this meeting more hopeful and understanding more what we're doing to achieve a more sustainable future. Now I would like to invite all of you to take a tour around our space to get to know some of the initiatives carried out at Bracell, like the electric truck, which is an unprecedented project developed by this company. And also you can take home a little gift or souvenir represent the commitment that we do. So I'm gonna invite all of you to get to know our social projects, and you can get this gift. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Bracell, Editora Globo, and Valor Econômico magazine, and a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you. Thank you so much.